Hello, everyone. This is a video. Well, the purpose of this video is to show how the CheckmarxONE integration works for Metadata API pipeline. In this case, we have built this solution, which is a DevOps Exchange solution, which you can encounter or in the community. So basically, if you navigate to the success.copado.com community, and then you go to the DevOps Exchange, you will find a new listing called CheckmarxONE for Metadata API. In this case, once you install that package, it's an unlocked package. And let me share my screen quickly. You will find in setup, install packages, this package with this description in the list. So what happens that at the time that you install the package, you will have to go to the extension, Copado extensions tab. So you can navigate through the app launcher, search for Copado extensions, and then once you are here, search for the extension, in this case, CheckmarxONE Metadata API. And then a function will be, well, there is only one element here, which is the function, but there are other components added to the package. But in this case, what we have to do is to generate this extension record. So once you select this option from the list, if it's the first time that you generate and you don't have that the function, you will have here a button to generate the function, and that will generate this function record with the script. Okay, and an example of the list of parameters. Okay, why it's an example? Because depending on how you want to configure the thresholds, you will be able to add more parameters. Okay, let's go down, see the threshold in the scan. So this is the threshold. As you can see, I have added these thresholds, but you can add whatever threshold you want to add. For more information, search for CheckmarxONE scan CLI command, and you will find all the options that you have available. In this case, as you can see, the value is referencing it's using a dynamic expression that goes to the parameters of the function. So if you want to have, in this case, imagine that you have multiple pipelines and you want to have different results for each pipeline. In that case, what you can do is to add here a dynamic expression, which is going to refer to a system property in the pipeline record that is linked to the user story or the promotion. Okay. For more information, you can go to docs.copado.com and search for dynamic expressions, and you will find some examples there. Now, let's go and see how it works. In the user story, here, as you can see, there is a new action, a new button called CheckmarxScan. Basically, what happens behind the scenes is at the time that I click this button, I'm running a flow. So if I go to setup, I will be able to see what is the name of the flow. Navigate to Checkmarx. CheckmarxScan. And this is the flow. At the time that is a managed package, you will not be able to see the flow, but it's simple. It retrieves the user story ID, and it runs the function. So what happened that at the time that I click this button, I will see a pop-up with a link of the result, okay? And if I go to the result, I will see the progress of the scan. If I go to the logs, to the files that are attached to the result record, I have the logs and also a report. So at the time that the scan is completed successfully, I will have a report with all the information regarding the results. What we have done so far in the user story, there is inside the function, in the script, we are also parsing the information of this report. So if I go back to the user story and I go to test, I will see the static code analysis results related list, different records, but in this case, just for an example, I have here one which has the checkmarks score, highest priority, and number of violations. These are different values. So if I have the default configuration of the related list, I will see the score, not the checkmarks score, the score, which is for the PMD scans. In this case, we had to develop or create a new field just because the priority or the way that we calculate the score is different. It's just the sum up of the priorities of all the violations of the user story, of the scan, basically. Here I can see a summary of how many critical severity rules were violated, how many high severity rules were violated, medium, low, and info. If I go to the static code analysis violation, I will see the name, the message, the name of the rule that was violated, the severity, okay, but basically the severity depends on the priority. And the sum of the priority of all the rules is it's how we calculate the checkmarks score. Something important, we are reducing the priority of the Copado deployer package, and this is an integer, which doesn't have the decimals. What happens that in this case, if I go to Salesforce Inspector, I can see that it's not real 7, it's 6.5. So if you see that at the end, the score of the static code analysis result doesn't match with the sum up of these violations, is because of that reason. Basically, it's behind the scenes, we are using the decimal, okay, the real value. So here is 15, and it's because it's 6.5 and 8.5. Okay. So how we can use this information? So basically, this is the information that is linked to the user story. So if I go back to the user story, here I can configure a validation rule, a flow that updates a field hidden in the layout that basically checks if the result record of the static code analysis result linked to the user stories complies with the quality that you expect in your pipeline, in your user stories. Okay. What other use cases we cover with this extension? The promotion checks or the promotion checkmarks scans. How does it work? Basically, in the pipeline, bear in mind that we are talking about metadata format pipelines. Now we have this. So the pipeline manager, now we have two different pipeline managers. We have the metadata format pipeline manager and the source format pipeline manager. Okay. If we are using a previous version, on an old version of Copado, you will only see one pipeline manager, which is the metadata format pipeline. So if I go to the metadata format pipeline, I will see my metadata format pipeline and the button of configure pipelines. Here I can create a connection behavior, and inside the connection behavior, I can create an automation, which is the one that is going to call my function to run the checkmarks scan whenever the static code analysis, whenever I deploy something to the integration environment. The execution sequence before, just because I want to prevent something to be deployed. So that's why I check beforehand, before the deployment. And this is the automation template. So basically, if I go to the automation template, I go to steps, I have added this function, which is the CheckmarxONE, which is the same function that I shared with you before. Well, in case that you need to filter depending on the metadata that you are deploying, that's why you have this metadata group. So if you need to search how, or you need more information about how to work with metadata groups, you can search it in docs.copado.com, but basically here you can create a metadata group with the criteria of the content of your promotion, of your user stories that you're going to deploy, just to ensure that you're running this validation when the criteria is met. Okay? Perfect. So now what happens whenever what I will see is that in my deployment, I will have a new step, okay, that is above any step of the deployment. So if it's going to be before the Git promotion step, but also if there is any deployment task added to the user stories, those are going to be after this automation, okay? If I go to the automation and I click on view results, here I need to go to this deployment link. And here is where I can see the scan step. This is a limitation due to the metadata format pipelines mechanism. But in any case, you can always go and check here the logs of the execution. So if I run this from the user story, I will see that the user story ID parameter is filled with the user story ID. And if I run if the execution is coming from a deployment, I will see that the promotion ID is what is added to the function. Okay. Now, what happened? Well, how we can prevent, how we can configure the thresholds for these promotions, for this connection behavior, basically with the CheckmarxONE thresholds. In the automation, I can configure the parameters, the values, and I can add the thresholds there. Okay, so I can add how many high SAST high violations I'm gonna admit, I'm gonna allow. The same with medium, low, critical. So you can SDA. So there are different values. You can find it in the CheckmarxONE official documentation. Okay. So what will happen that at the time that the deployment that this step fails, this deployment will fail. So then the automation will fail. Okay, and then the deployment will fail as well. Okay. So well, this is all. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please reach out to the labs team. Well, now it's called Copado Solutions Engineering team, and happy to help.